A lot could go wrong, Bubsy. This is Ray Phoenix, and this is something I'm going to do for a long time now. This is Bubsy and Clausy Counters of the third kind, Bubsy's first game. It's probably also his best game, too. This game, some people say this game sucks. I don't think this game's that bad of a game at all, actually. Sure, it's not perfect, it has flaws, but if you could get over those flaws, it's actually kind of a fun game, actually. You could walk around, you could collect the cheese. Not cheese, you don't collect cheese in this game, you collect those yarn ball things. And because this game's about these weird aliens called Woolies, they came to our world to get rid of yarn balls, and apparently Bubsy's a bobcat, so naturally he likes to play with yarn balls. I mean, he's not the only annoying bobcat around here. We also have Bonkers, as we probably know. Bonkers, the bobcat. But, Bubsy's probably the more famous one since he appeared in a lot more video games. For some reason, some great classics like Dynamite Head, he never got any sequels, and yet Bubsy gets a lot of sequels, and even just recently they brought him back to with some new games on newer systems. I wonder how that happens. How is Bubsy better than Dynamite Heady, and even Vector Man and a lot of those other greats that we had in the 90s? Oh, what was wrong with the 90s? I mean, people talk about the 90s like it was the greatest decade ever. Yeah, it seems like that a lot of the time, but people often forget all the flaws the 90s had. The 90s wasn't a perfect decade at all. And this game is also, as I said before, still a flaws. There are a lot of glitches. Bubsy's weak as hell. He's not as weak as Alex Kidd, though, but he's still pretty dang weak. If he touches something, he dies. That's probably why you start off with so many lives. Look how many lives I've got already just playing this game. I had 9 lives when I began. Now I have 12 lives. And look at that, it's earned 2 new lives right there. This game's being overly generous with lives. You know that when a game is overly generous with lives, you know something's coming up. You know something's gonna be something really like, oh, there's that yellow car. Gotta be careful of those cars. The yellow ones you can jump on and destroy, but the red ones abduct you. Yeah, cause people like, kidnappers like abducting Bubsy Bobcat, which I don't blame them considering how annoying Bubsy is. He's kind of like the Jar Jar Binks of 90s video games. Look at that, I just got killed right there trying to jump over that guy, and Bubsy jumps pretty high too. Look at that gumball machine kills you too. Pretty much everything in this game kills you. And what do these things have against Bubsy? It's like Bubsy versus the world. Bubsy 2 is an even worse case of it, but in Bubsy 2 it's not as bad, because in Bubsy 2 you actually get health. And then in his other game, Bubsy and Fractured Furry Tales, you don't have any health at all in that game, I don't think. And you get killed all the time. Like, and the game's not even straightforward either. You're constantly running in circles trying to find out what's going next. And at least this game's a lot more straightforward. So as you see, we made it to the end of the level. There's a goalpost. Every level ends like this, except for boss levels, where you go to the goalpost. It counts how many yarn balls you have. It contributes it to your score. And then yes, that's pretty much how a level in this game ends. That's gonna ask you to press a button. There's always voice clips from Bubsy. It's actually pretty impressive. This is the Sega Genesis version of the game, and voice acting and cartridges actually takes up a lot of space on the cartridge. Like, even that thing that says Sega being in the Sonic games, you'd be surprised at how much space that actually takes up on a cartridge. A lot of this game's cartridge's space was taken up from Bubsy saying stuff. Because, that's the way that Bubsy is, sure, let's all torch the Bubster. So you see, he's gonna, shake himself off like that, shake all the water off. And that's what cats apparently do after they get wet. And he could run really fast. He's like Sonic, he could run really fast. I think the guy that made this game was a big fan of Sonic. He spent way too much time playing Sonic, to a point where he was obsessed with Sonic. More obsessed with Sonic than Chris Chan is, and as you know, but at least this guy was more original. When he made his own version of Sonic, he actually took something, again, more original. I have to kind of give him credit for that. And look at that, I keep bashing the Woolies like that too. At least Bubsy's somewhat original. I mean, he could be worse. I mean, like, there are people who make worse rip-off. Look at that, holy crap, piano, look at that, so many pianos. Like, why are there so many pianos here just running by? I tell you, everything in this game freaking killed. Look at that. It's like, it's impossible to play this game without getting killed once. I wonder if anyone's ever done that before. I know there's this guy I watched a long time ago. His name was like Lila, or whatever his name was. I forget his name exactly. But oh, look at that. That freaking Wooly just jumped on my head and he died. Out of that, anyway, he's played this game like so many times, where he spent most of his life playing this game. He knows this game like the back of his hand. Like, he's like that, like, into this game. I wonder if you could play this game without getting killed. He probably has. That's how he ended up with 80 lives at one point in this game. 80 lives, yeah. You get a lot of lives in this game. You're gonna lose them all fast because of how everything kills you. As I said before, this is the Genesis version of the game. It's pretty much the same as the SNES version, only the sound is not as good. This here's a large body of water there. And I'm going to use some non-existent blast processing that the Genesis had to make myself run really fast. I'm going to pull a Sonic the Hedgehog, and oh, that's not what I was going for exactly, but yeah, well, at least it worked. At least I didn't get killed, because Bubsy can't swim either, no surprise. If he's that wimpy, you know, at least he's not as bad as, I don't know, who else is like that. Well, I know Alex Kidd's like that. Alex Kidd is pretty weak. Sega's, well, look at that. Like, look at that. I had to anticipate that. I played this game before, so I knew that was coming. But if you never played this game before, you're gonna get your ass handed to you if you play this game. Whoa. You see, look at that. He, like, and it's a good thing Bubsy jumps very high. Bubsy would be screwed if he couldn't jump so high. And there, you see there, he's collecting so many of the I keep wanting to call them balls. They're actually yarn balls. They're just regular balls in the sequels, I think. So yeah, on Bubsy Fractured Furry Tales, I actually played that game more than 2 years ago. It was one of the first videos I made of commentary, and boy, that game's a train wreck of a game. And but it also helps demonstrate too, is the graphics in those games are exactly the same. And Bubsy game's on Genesis and SNES, and it's 16-bit. And they said the Atari Jaguar 64-bit, which means it's better than SNES and Genesis. And yet, most of the games on that system just look like, you know, SNES or Genesis games. So here's the first boss of the game. The bosses of this game are easy. They're cakewalks. Look at that, I just killed that guy easy like it's nothing. You know what to do, look at that. Sonic the Hedgehog had more difficult bosses than this. And there, yeah, pretty much that's how it goes. Now we're going to the next chapter 4. This is the next, like, world of the game, or zone of the game, whatever you call it. This is pretty much like the spring yard zone from the original Sonic the Hedgehog, where it's like all carnival thing, and there's like things that throw you around, whip you around. You know, Bubsy likes getting whipped around, probably. I thought cartoon characters liked getting beat up, said AVGN to Bugs Bunny. Well, Bubsy clearly doesn't like getting beat up, because when he gets touched by anything, he dies. He's the weakest character in gaming history next to Alex Kidd. So you can jump on that thing, it shoots us in the air. We're gonna keep running down these things. You get killed if you run into the roller coasters. Even if the roller coasters aren't running, these could you still run into and get killed. Yeah, because this game has like a, look at that, it's like a boot there. Someone just left a boot there to throw you back. Look at that. It's like a freaking pinball game. It feels like I'm playing like a freaking pinball game. Imagine if pinball was like this, where you play it around, and then your ball touches something wrong and it explodes and you lose the game instantly. Pinball would suck if that's how pinball was. I have to admit, the music in this game is actually not that bad. Even in the Genesis version, the music isn't that bad. I actually kind of like the soundtrack to this game. The soundtrack is pretty good. Not as good as Sonic, obviously, or Mario, or Mega Man, or something like that. But the soundtrack is pretty, good overall. It's a pretty nice soundtrack, actually. It's not that bad. People say this game has some of the worst music ever, but I disagree. This music's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good for a musical score. I like to see like orchestral versions of this. You know, when they do like video games live, and they make like orchestra versions of video game music. I like to see that. But I also want to see the 1941 ending being played by the London Philharmonic Orchestra or something like that. Whoa, if I was gonna run. See, that's the other thing too. There's a lot of leaps of faith in this game. You don't know what's ahead. You're ever gonna fall in a pit of spikes, or you might fall to safety. You never have any idea what's gonna happen next. Whoa, you see, look at that. You never know what's gonna happen next in this game. This game's like, completely, but it's not really in a good way either. It's like completely random. At least it's the same every time you play the game, but it's hard to figure out what's coming up next. It only seems random if you've never played this game before. I have played this game, but I played the first few worlds. I never actually beat this game, actually, to this day. I played this game a lot, but I never actually beaten it. I should do that one of these days and make a video of me fighting. Look at that freaking thing for the freaking eggs. I mean, apparently Bubsy's made out of glass. I didn't know eggs could break glass. If eggs could break glass, windows get broken whenever people egg someone's house. People egg people's houses all the time, and it doesn't break the glass. I mean, Justin Bieber egged someone's house once, and apparently it was considered a felony. Because, in this day and age, felonies are fun, right? But almost anything could be a felony in these days. I bet if they outlawed this video game, playing this game would be considered a felony to some people. Apparently chopping down a tree in Central Park's a felony, which is no surprise if egging someone's house is a felony. Jaywalking's a felony in some places. So yeah, I guess this makes perfect sense. It all makes perfect sense, I guess. And so we got that thing of yarn balls, and look at that, we gotta continue, so we could continue the game, but look at what's happening now. Oh, look at that, a surprise bonus stage, and these don't give you Chaos Emeralds like they did in Sonic. It'd be cool if they could make like a Sonic the Hedgehog like bonus level. It looks like lava you're flowing through too, and now look at that, we're still stuck in this little containment thing, this solitary confinement. That's what freaking prison is for. I wonder if prisoners play this game. You know, they have video game systems in prisons sometimes. They probably had this game in a prison somewhere for prisoners to play. And those prisoners must be lucky. I mean, this game's no pit fight or anything like that. It's way better than Wizard of Oz, right? This game's definitely not bad, as you can probably see here. I mean, Wizard of Oz, the video game on the SNES, was pretty bad too. And then there's some other. I mean, like the SNES had the least. You know, a lot of people say the SNES had the least worst games imaginable. Well, that's what Stan Birdman said. I mean, when he says it's saying a bad game on the SNES, is as often as you see your daughter come home with another girl and they make odd sounds in the bedroom together, and they want to hide a camera in there to see what they do while they're in there alone. That's what bad games on the SNES are like. They're so rare. Whenever there is one, you're gonna want to, spy on it pretty much. But I played my fair share of bad games on the SNES. I remember I used to take risks all the time because I never owned an actual SNES, and ROMs are free. You could download on any kind of ROM you want for free, so that's what I would do a lot of the time. And yeah, I would end up with a lot of crappy games, but to me it was worth it to find a good one every now and then. Unfortunately, it's kind of the sad reality of the gaming industry too. Unfortunately, there are more bad games out there than there are of good games. There are more stinkers than there are of actual gems, but what do you expect? That happens when you have a lot of games. You can't expect all of them to be good, right? I mean, even the Genesis had its share of good games and bad games. Pretty much any system imaginable has its fair share of good and bad games. And oddly enough, the video game system that has the most amount of bad games is probably the NES. Because almost anyone can make their own NES games if they could get past. If they could, get past, the Nintendo seal of quality. Thinking unlicensed games like those Color Dream games, those Color Dreams and the Wisdom Tree, they made those crappy Bible games. Yeah, so you see that anyone can make their own game for that at that time. I actually started going into computer programming, or computer software support is what it's actually called, and I'm pretty soon going to be making my own Atari 2600 games based on my own intellectual properties, based on things I've created and stuff like that. I'm sure you guys like to do that, right? They like to play Atari 2600 games that were made by me. Ray Phoenix makes Atari 2600 games. Apparently that's how it's going to be. I'm learning how to code in Python. I haven't actually really done much Python coding yet, but pretty soon I'm going to be learning how to code in Python, so maybe I should make some videos of that too. Speaking of new videos, I'm trying to come up with more ideas for videos that I can make, and someone on Discord was interested in how I make sculpts, so I actually told them I'll be making this soon. I'm going to be making videos on me sculpting and show how I sculpt and how I sculpt stuff and things. I think you guys like to see. I like to see videos of me sculpting, where I talk about the software, the 3D Coat sculpting software. Maybe I could sculpt Bubsy Bobcat someday. What do you think of that? Hey, that's actually a pretty good idea. I bet I could put it in the Bubsy Bobcat, what's it called, the Bubsy Bobcat club or thing on DeviantArt, and I get a feature in that. That'd be pretty good. Not very many people on DeviantArt know how to sculpt. I'm one of the only sculptors on DeviantArt, or on the internet in general, from how it seems. So yeah, that sounds pretty good. So yeah, that's all I'm going to really show this game. I think you guys know what my opinion is of this game. This is Ray Phoenix, signing out.